Hi everyone. I hope you're doing well. Thank you for coming to our last meeting this semester, which will be dedicated to the discussion of applying for a position in the industry for the first time as a recent graduate. Today we have two guests. I will introduce them now. But first, let's talk about the topic because today's panel addresses a crucial transition that many of you will face, applying for your first industry position as a recent graduate. While your doctoral training has equipped you with sophisticated quantitative and measurement skills, translating that expertise into an industry application can feel unfamiliar. The industry job search differs significantly from the academic track, from how positions are advertised and qualifications are presented, to what employers prioritize and how interviews are conducted. Our panelists have successfully made this transition and now work as psychometricians and quantitative professionals in industry settings. They will share practical insights about three subtopics: how to identify and pursue industry opportunities, advice on best practices and common pitfalls during the application process, and key qualities that make a strong candidate. Whether you are certain about pursuing industry or still exploring options, today's discussion will help you navigate this pathway effectively. Please ask questions throughout. This is your opportunity to learn from those who have recently walked this path. With us, we have Dr. Seohee Park. Dr. Park is a psychometrician at the American Board of Internal Medicine, where she specializes in item response theory, classification accuracy, equating, and standard settings. She earned her Ph.D. in educational measurement and statistics from the University of Iowa in 2021. Dr. Park has published research on classification consistency and accuracy, as well as equating and linking, and regularly presents her work at national conferences, including NCME and AERA. She has also contributed to the development of an art package and actively serves in professional roles with both KAERA and NCME. Dr. Aloe told him that in terms of math and programming in R, you are better than him. So that's a great compliment. So then we also have Dr. Benjamin Andrews. During Benjamin's 15 years of experience, he has held roles in different areas of measurement, including English language learning, admission testing, K-12 testing, and certification and licensure. He currently serves as a lead research scientist at Edmonton. Thank you for being here, both of you. We have different questions, as I told you. So what do you think if we start with where should recent graduates look for industry job postings? And how early should they start the search process relative to their graduation date? What do you think about that? Go ahead.
Okay. For me, I highly recommend to start to find the job posting 2 years ahead. It doesn't mean that you need to apply for that, but I want you to read just the job description and then try to write out your own CV and then compare. And then there are some requirements from the job, and then you have your own CV, and you can see that, oh, what's the missing? What's the part that I need to do more? So maybe a little bit earlier is better. It's the same for the internship application. So for my case, I have a goal of like, I want to do the internship for sure in 2018, but I start to look for the internship position in 2017. And I try to create my own CV, and I also write down my cover letter so that I can have an entire year so that I can prepare for my next internship. So for me, I highly recommend you to start a little bit early so that you can know that what kind of requirement each position has, and then so that you can fill up your gap of knowledge or gap of like a strength or leadership. If you need something more, you have time to do that. So that's my thought.
Yeah, I agree. I think that as far as the process of actually applying, I think it depends, but I think it'd probably be good if you had a sense of when you were gonna actually be done with your dissertation. Because some folks do get jobs and work full-time while finishing up their dissertation, but that is challenging. So I think the most common route is usually, once you have a good sense of when you're gonna be done, sort of thinking about applying shortly thereafter. Your time frame may not line up with a lot of other companies, and that's fine. Some may say, yeah, can join us in 3 months when we finish up your dissertation or what have you, but it doesn't hurt to sort of start that process, even if you don't have every detail about when you're gonna be done, totally.
And then as an international student, you also need to think about like your visa situation. So you don't want to apply too early because the company usually do not wait for you guys 6 months or 9 months for the visa situation. So maybe like as Benjamin talked about it, 3 months is probably max. So you can think about your visa situation. You want to talk to your what was the international ISSS, right? The International Student Service,
yes.
yeah, the office, and then think about your visa situation and OPT date, and then you might want to apply for that, like 3 months ahead, or yeah, not too early.
Yes. So one of the things that we have been mentioning in these meetings is networking, like something crucial. One of the questions that we have is how important is, from your perspective, networking in identifying industry opportunities, and what strategies would you recommend for building professional connections outside of academia?
I would say it sort of varies in importance. It can be, I've gotten positions based on, people I worked with before, people that I had gone to school with, or different situations like that, so, or, people I've met through internships, so it's. I mean, for me, I don't think it's necessarily something that you have to feel like you need to do, but it's good to meet people. You never know what you'll learn from people. You do internships, learn from other folks and keep in touch with fellow interns and stuff like that. So I think it's important, and there are lots of benefits, but I don't think it's, at least in my experience, not something that you should feel pressure to do, or pressure to do it in a certain kind of way. It sort of take care of itself naturally a little bit. I don't, it's certainly a positive thing, but I wouldn't feel too much pressure to kind of make something happen, but definitely meet new people, learn from people, keep in touch, that kind of thing.
Same for me as well. I don't think like a network is the number one important factor to find a job, but they will give you some opening. So for example, if you know someone in some company, they will look at your CV one more time, but it does not mean that you will have a guarantee find that job, or guarantee have the interview, or interview opportunity. So if I were you, I will focus on your own strategy instead of networking more. So, but of course, if you have internship experience, and if you meet somebody in NCME or AERA that will helpful, they will look at your CV at least one more time. But it does not mean that you are guaranteed find the job.
Great. Now, I have a follow-up question, but in your experience, what was the thing that made you choose industry instead of academia or any other kind of thing? Why did you decide to work in industry?
For me, I just sort of had like the challenges that industry poses. I very much like doing research, but I like the sort of applied measurement problems that you encounter in industry. And I think it's sort of a good blend of a lot of different things. I was never terribly interested in academic positions. I'm not totally sure why, but I think industry positions can have so many different shapes. They're not all the same. And you can get a lot of things that are kind of like academic jobs in some industry settings. And so it's a really diverse or very broad kind of term. Because industry jobs can really take on a lot of forms. But and that's sort of what attracted.
I will share my own experience. So for me, I prepare both. So I was interested in academia. I also interested in industry. But at that time, when I was graduate student, I admired our professor. So I'm more interested in the academic job. So I try to publish more paper. I try to focus on like research more at that time. But I realized that like situation always does not give me opportunity. So when I applied the job, that was 2020. So as you know, what happened in 2020, it was COVID hit, and there was only like a 3 job opening in the academia, and there is only a couple of job opening in industry. So I apply wherever, like whichever it has an opening, and then the professor job that I applied, they decide not to hire anybody in 2021, and then I got a job this position, and then I also have some interview opportunity. But after I joined at the time like still I was not sure that how much I like industrial job over academic job. But now I feel like academic job is less attractive for me, because the industry job is like has more work and life balance, and then definitely finance more support than academic job. So now I like an industrial job more. But at that time, as a graduate student, I didn't know that what I like. I didn't know that at all. So before you experience it, you do not fully understand yourself, like whether you can fit the academia or industry. But what I can say right now is that if you like work independently as alone, but if you do not like any kind of cooperation, I think it's better to go to academia. But if you like cooperation with others, and then you like working with your team, it's better to be with industry, I think.
Back in the time when you were grad students, what factors did you consider to make a decision, and what things would you add or remove based on that experience? What factors do you think matter for this type of decision?
About whether to go with
The
an academic
academic.
position or
To industries, yes,
oh,
yes.
industry.
Do you think that, for instance, money matters, or the location matters, the prestige of the place in which you wanna work later?
I think it's a little bit different between the American and international student, because for international student, we do not have a home here. Like we can go anywhere, isn't it? But I think for like American people, they are thinking about more family, where they live. They wanna live close to their family. That's why like location matter. But international student, we are pretty open. That's my thought. And then I have a husband. He's from Iowa, and he grew up in Iowa. And when I told him that I got a job in Philadelphia, we need to move to Philadelphia, and he said he cannot understand why. Why do we need to move to East Coast? That's like hell. But like as an international student, we are pretty open for the location. So I think if you are okay with relocate, it's better to go to like a hybrid position or in-person position, because that's the way that you can learn about your company culture, and then you can also learn about the other people. And I think that is a good, the factor, like a good, how can I say, a good environment. So in terms of location, it's better to think about it. And then one reason that I choose ABIM is because of brand. So according to the Dr. Lee, Won-Chan Lee, and then the broad Grossman is from one of our alumni from the University of Iowa, and then he worked at ABIM, and then now he's vice president in ABIM. And then through Won-Chan Lee, I heard that ABIM is a good company, so that made me feel like I want to work there as well. So prestige is also important.
Yeah, I think that, you know, any sort of factors that are important to you can go into that kind of decision, whether it be location or what have you. I was kind of, when I was looking for jobs, I was kind of flexible. I didn't have a preference about where I wanted to live or anything like that. I was open to any sort of new experience. So I think that, you know, in general, it might be good to not have like so many strict preferences, at least be a little bit open-minded, because you never really know what is going to be out there, what situation might actually be a good fit. But you know, there's a lot of flexibility in a lot of ways in industry jobs.
That sounds great. Thank you. Before moving to our second subtopic, questions? Yes, thank you.
So between the option of academia and industry, have you seen any cases that from academia to industry, from industry to academia as in our field? Have you seen any cases?
I have seen a few, not a lot, because I graduated only 4.5 years ago. So I have seen two or three people. Some people move around because of visa situation. Because like some university, they decide to not to provide a visa anymore. In that case, they move around. And then some also, like if you go to some of small university, like they have to deal with all kind of dissertation at the College of Education. So for us, we have a lot of like a professor in terms of quantitative research. But if you go to the small school, you are the only quantitative person. That means you need to dealing with all kinds of dissertation, and then that person want to have a colleague. So he want to have like a research experience with a colleague. So he moved to the bigger company. It has a research team. And I rarely see some people who go to the academia from the industry so far. But I think
Yeah, I think it's something that does happen, but maybe people a little bit further in their career.
yes.
I can't think of anyone that I know of that I've worked with who sort of made that change, but I mean, I know it happens, but it's probably a little bit more challenging early in your career. But it certainly could, particularly if someone came from an industry job that was heavily research focused, those sorts of jobs. So it could happen. I don't think it happens fairly often, but I'm not too familiar with it.
Thank you. So let's move to our second subtopic. One of the things that we have been that were mentioned in previous meetings were the materials that we need for the application process. In your experience, what are the most critical components of a strong industry application package? Let's say the CV, a cover letter, or maybe a portfolio. And how should recent graduates prioritize their time in developing these materials?
Sure. I think the CV is probably the most important because that's what people get the most information from the quickest. I think that the cover letter, at least in my experience, becomes really important if you're maybe applying for a role where someone might not immediately see how you fit into it. if say it's a it offers you a way to say, well, I have these quantitative skills and they'd be really useful in this job. Even though it may not be strictly a psychometrics position or something like that, but so I think if you're that's where the cover letter really plays an important role to convey if you might be a slightly non-traditional candidate and also explain why you think you are a good candidate. But I think the CV is kind of the foot door. I think you stand a better shot at getting a serious look at your solid CV.
So it's similar experience as well. CV is definitely important. Based on the CV, we can see what kind of strength they have. But I think our company, we also focus on cover letter a lot, because cover letter is the only place that we can know the characteristic of the candidate. So we try to read the cover letter one by one very thoroughly. So when you write down the cover letter, please focus on convey your own story instead of a general idea. Because right now, a lot of people use AI, and then we can see a lot of general AI version of a cover letter. Sometimes I can see exactly same structure across the candidate. And then when I review some even internship position, I can see oh, they probably use the same prompts. Because it's very similar and very general and broad. So if you write down your own cover letter, please convey your own story, and then please write down why you fit this position, not generally, specifically, because we want to hear your story and then we want to see your character based on the cover letter.
If someone reading your materials thinks that it's probably one of 100 that you send out for any vaguely quantitative position, probably not going to get more than a simple look. So anytime you can sort of be specific, this is what I think I would fit here, and this is what I can bring specific to this role. Because if you're applying for a bunch of jobs, that's not going to be the same story for all of them. It's not saying you have to rewrite a cover letter for everyone, but it's really helpful to reviewing them to see or to have it conveyed to them what they think they can contribute and how they think they would fit.
It's slightly related to what you were mentioning. How should candidates translate their academic experience, like in research, in teaching, or publications, into language and accomplishments that resonate with industry hiring managers?
I think in terms of research, our company value how you can cooperate with the others, and then how you can work independently in some level. At the same time, we want to see your technical skill, whether you have some art skill or a strong SAS skill, something like that. And in terms of teaching, our company really value your teaching experience, because if you work in industry, you are not working only with psychometrician, but also you can work with IT. You will have to work with the project manager. Sometimes you have to convince some leadership group why we have to do this scoring, why this scoring matter. And in my case, we also need to meet the doctor. And then during our meeting, we need to explain why bisphere is important, what is bisphere is. So your teaching experience probably connect with how you can convey your knowledge with the non-psychometrician people. So what kind of language you can use, and then you can transform your knowledge for the specific audience. So that is a way that you can do make a form for the job application. And first one was the research, second was the teaching, and then what was the third one?
The third one was publications.
Publication, that is just similar, like your writing skill. If you have to write some report, sometimes like what if you apply for the especially the research position, measurement scientist or research team, so writing skill is important. So publication is always valued.
I think for people starting out in their careers, a lot of times the CVs and cover letters can look really similar to one another. So I think what makes people stand out is, or so when you're hiring new graduates, you don't expect that everyone is going to come in having all the skills they need. So I think conveying that you are able to learn and can work independently, things like that are what really set people apart. And that can take different forms, like talking about your experience teaching. That can go a long way in conveying to an employer, I can explain complicated measurement concepts to the content development person who doesn't know anything about it. Or the physician that you have to talk to, or whatever the case may be, that is an example of the kind of thing that would help you. And same with research. You may have done research that is not particularly pertinent to the company that you're applying to, but if you can convey, in this work, I learned how to code in Python. I hadn't done that before. I learned about these new methodologies and things like that. Anything that can make prospective employer think, oh, this person can really, is going to be able to pick up things quickly. That's the kind of thing you want to convey. And I think any one of those can sort of help tell that story. But I think that's the important thing. No one expects everyone to come in having all the skills, but if you can show that you can pick things up and learn quickly, that's huge.
So for someone who maybe does not have a lot of experience, but let's say, for example, in classes, you were asked to, like in Dr. Hoffman's class, create a presentation using your own data, researching, and then you present it to a class. Would you encourage trying to incorporate that into your CV, even though it's part of a class, to demonstrate what you did and learned in that situation?
Possibly if it's related.
If it's related to
the
position.
position, absolutely. I think that anything that you're, in my experience, it's always helped candidates to sort of be able to, or it helps when you can tell that they're thinking about how their skills connect. And because in some ways it's not obvious, but at least, considering that is important.
Right.
Even if it, and it could just be something as simple as, oh, I know a little bit about this, but I learned a lot of this kind of tangential topic from doing this project, and it's being able to show that you can learn is huge.
How are we doing? Questions? Great, because now that you have been mentioning that you have been working like checking applications, one of the questions that we have is, based on your experience and as graduates and now as part of the industry, what are the most common mistakes you have seen candidates make when applying to industry positions, and how can they be avoided?
One thing that I remember from some interview from my company, I know as an international student, the interview is very scary part. And then sometimes a lot of international students, even though they do not understand the question, they smile and then they try to answer the question. But I think that is not great. So if you cannot understand, please ask them again. Even native speaker, it's possible that they cannot understand the question, and then the question itself could be complicated, or how they phrase would be a little bit not common way. So if you're confused about the question, instead of trying to answer it based on your understanding, you better to ask like, could you rephrase like your question and could you clarify your question and then try to answer those questions, because a lot of time in industry, we value the communication is one of important factor to hire somebody. But if someone does not answer the question in the correctly, so for example, I ask about A, but the candidate think that, oh, she asked about B, and then she answered like B, blah, 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 blah. Then we think, oh, maybe communication skill has some problem. And then how can I work with those people? So I highly recommend you to ask the question again if you cannot understand some question. But I know as an international student, it's so scary to ask, and then feels like, oh, maybe they judge me as like I'm non-native speaker and then my English is bad. But it's better to ask instead of that you are just assuming something and then answer that.
And I don't think that sort of issue is limited to
right,
international
right.
students, because I'm sure we've encountered that as well. That was a big thing that I thought of as well. It's way better to say, oh, I'm not sure, I hadn't thought of that, or is this kind of what you mean, or things like that. Anything, it's way better to show that you're being thoughtful and trying to understand than trying to sort of jam in something that you think is maybe kind of related, but maybe a bit off topic, but you feel more comfortable about. It's way better to try and be direct or ask questions or say, oh, I'm not sure, well, maybe this, or that kind of thing. It's a very intimidating process, of course, but I think that oftentimes people value sort of you being thoughtful.
Yes,
So I have a question. This might be like the end process of this application process. I mean, you have one of two options. Either you will be accepted for a position, or you will be offered the position, or you will be rejected. So I'm not sure how to address both situations. So I've heard some people like don't accept the offer directly, like try to negotiate benefits or salary or whatever offers for you. And in terms of the rejection, and I feel like we deserve like some feedback from the interviews, some sort of things that you just mentioned we didn't know. Even I've applied for like dozens of applications, and I keep receiving some rejections. None of them, even after the interviewing of the hiring manager, none of them come up with the feedback, what they did wrong, what they didn't. I know this is some sort of, it might be like a legal issue or something like that. You cannot make it clear to the applicant, but for us, we need that to be guided at least.
So in terms of job processing, we usually send out the rejection email once another person accepts the job. Because before another, like the candidate, the most promising candidate accepts the job, we still open it. Like if that person could be resign that position, then we need to find another one. So regarding that part, like you probably get the rejection letter very late. That was daunting for me, because I want to know the like answer. Could you give me the answer? If you don't like it, just let me know so that I don't need to wait for that. But like I think that is like American job processing, so I try to understand that part. But regarding the feedback, I think it's hard to provide.
And I think you're onto some of the legal sorts of issues with
That's
it.
my thought. I think this is a reasonable reason for not providing any feedback.
Yeah, I think that's probably a big chunk of why it doesn't happen, but I understand, the frustration of, because how can you expect to learn anything or gain anything? You
That's
don't
right.
know. It's not a big deal, two candidates, they have two different sets of skills, and for this job, this person's better. And, that may not be a big deal to the person who wasn't chosen, but, if there's something else that you could improve upon, it's really hard to get feedback like that. I think the only, yeah, I've never really sort of. I wish it were different. I wish there were a way to do that, but it's really hard, from a hiring perspective and from the applicant perspective.
That's right.
It's not great.
I would suggest going to like the career center and say, hey, I want to have a mock interview with you. Tell me things that you like, things that you think I can improve upon, or even ask one of your professors, say, hey, pretend that you are hiring for this position. I would like an interview and just be open and honest with it. That's what you'd like to do in practice, and they can give you feedback from their perspective on whether they would hire or not hire and why, because then there's no legal issue going on.
Yeah.
It's just they're just giving honest feedback to help you out.
And same goes for CV, cover letters.
Exactly.
Having someone else take a look at them.
Yeah.
Would be really helpful, even a fellow student going through the same thing. Because it can be a very isolating experience, but someone may look at your stuff and realize, oh, you should really put this on because you think you can do all these things. And then, well, oh, I never thought of that, that people, are always gonna have a slightly different perspective on you than your own. So I think there are lots of benefits to getting other input from other people to hopefully help the whole process.
And then I also want to just let you know that if you get the rejection, it does not mean that you're a bad candidate. Sometimes if you already have a on-site interview, that means you are one of the good candidates. And then we also see the culture, whether you can fit in my team, and then whether you can get along with our team member. Even though you're the same graduate student, you have a small group with your friend. It's similar the concept.
Yes.
So even though you got the rejection, it does not mean that you're a bad candidate. Maybe just culturally, you does not fit in that group. So you can apply to another job, and then each company has their own culture. So please do not think that, oh, it's my fault.
Yeah, you never know if you get rejected for one job, but at the same company in a different department, it does something slightly different.
Right.
They may think you're the perfect candidate. So you never, it's hard, but to not being discouraged is, I think, really important, because you never know. They may be saying to themselves, why can't we hire both of them? You don't know. So
Yeah, a lot of the time that we also say we like this person, we also like this person, who should I go with?
Yeah.
So it doesn't mean that you're a bad candidate.
Yeah. So what about the offer letter? Hopefully each one of us could get an offer letter. So would we accept it immediately, or if there is something we could make it clear to the hiring manager, we need that, this negotiable or something like this?
Ben has more experience about that. I have only one experience.
Okay.
As far as being a new graduate, I think there are a bunch of things that I would ask first. Like, things like, is it a hybrid position, or what's starting date, or try and get it, or potentially more details about the department you're gonna work with. Some big companies may hire you and it's very light on details about what job you're gonna do, and then others, it's very clear you're working in this group, these people. So I think getting as much information as possible about the actual job itself is important, just so you, and maybe it doesn't change your mind, but it's, the more you know about what you're going into, the better. And as far as things being negotiable, it doesn't really hurt to ask, and as long as you're reasonable and respectful. If you've gotten to the point where you got an offer, they do want to hire you. So if you said, hey, it really help me if can we push start date back a month or something like that, maybe they can make that happen. It doesn't hurt to ask, things like that. And, or, for all sorts of reasons, you say, hey, I need to think about it. Can I give you an answer, in a few days or whatever the case may be, just kind of, it's better to kind of ask, like, would this be okay? You shouldn't feel like on the spot, like, hey, take it now or you're out, But sometimes things are negotiable, sometimes not. Like, for instance, if you had to move across the country, well, what are moving expenses covered? Or, you may not know any of that from the interview process, but it's a good thing to know ahead of time. So I think being able to sort of thinking about what questions you'd want to ask, what don't you know about this before you fully commit? I think it's important.
I would also look into what's the standard of living versus any student loans that you may need to pay back.
Yeah.
So for example, standard of living, maybe you'll be able to get by with $50,000, $60,000 a year. Okay. But maybe because of student loans, you need to make $70,000 or $80,000 a year in that location, so you're not eating PB&J for the next 10 years to be able to survive. And I'm not saying that this will happen, and I'm not saying anybody will make them. I'm just sad. I'm just giving that as an example. Because maybe $50,000, in Iowa is great, but maybe if you go to New York City, you're be living in a paper box. Just because you can't afford rent, let alone eating.
That's right.
So
when we give offer to the candidate, we really hope that the candidate accept our offer there.
Immediately.
Yeah, but so that means that you are the one who can negotiate it. We try to listen to you, as well as you ask respectfully, such as some ridiculous question. Can I have double salary? It doesn't make sense. But you can ask definitely about the relocate fee, and then you can also negotiate your starting date, and then you can also talk about some visa process at the time.
Yep.
So some company probably do not provide the visa process, but you can also ask, if I do my green card application by myself, or can you cover the green card application fee, something like that.
Yeah, that's a huge piece that I'm not familiar with at all, but
So-
I definitely, something to.
Regarding that part, so of course they cannot provide $100,000 for the H-1B for you, but if you ask a $5,000 for just application fee, then it's a little bit doable for the company. So if we hire that person, we want that person retain our company enough long time instead of quitting job because of visa. So that is a good time that you can ask and then negotiate a little bit. And then I also saw that some people we need to apply the OPT, right? And then OPT has a 2 track. One is a normal track, one is express track. And then some company want you to work fast, then they will pay your express fee.
Okay.
So you can ask about that.
That's very helpful. Thank you.
Yeah, it is. More questions? Great, because before you were also talking about interviews. Interviews are hard, right? So could you share some tips that work for you, or maybe now that you have been working in industry to think can help students to face that challenge?
For me, I practice a lot with my friend. So I have a lot of mock-up interview, at least for the presentation, I have at least 3 or 4 mock-up interview with the professor's group and with my friend's group, and then with someone who does not know any measurement. So that because I don't know, I didn't know that what would be the audience when I do the job interview. So I try to hear about each people's perspective, and I try to cooperate the feedback. And that is one of my strategy. And then regarding the communication and then general interview, I try to be myself a lot. So even though I try to pretend like I'm not good at SAS, but somebody asks, are you good at SAS? And if I pretend that I am good at it, but they will know that exactly. Like in a few moments, if they ask some more detailed question, they already know that I'm not good at it. So when my manager asked me about, are you good at SAS? And I said, no, but I'm good at R. So hopefully if you guys use SAS, I can transform my R skill to the SAS. But I never said I'm good at it. So please try to be yourself. That's my way of life.
Great question. So in my experience, people rate themselves on if they're an expert or intermediate or beginner for a variety of things, whether it's Excel, R, SAS, etc. Is there a site or sites that you could say, oh, if I look here, I can say, I'm definitely at an intermediate or an expert level in this area? Because I see people, oh, I'm an expert in Excel, and all they know how to do is enter data into a spreadsheet. They just type it in, but they declare themselves an expert because they can do that part expertly, as opposed they don't know how to make any functions. Whereas someone might say, I like yourself might say, oh, I know R, I know a lot of R, but there's so much R I don't know. I'm not going to rate myself expert. I'm going to rate myself as an intermediate or a low, just because I know there's so much out there that I don't know. So
when we interview our candidate, we do not value those people based on how they say I'm expert, I'm intermediate. Instead of that, we ask them about their experience. Like what do they do with R? And then based on their answer, we can tell, oh, these people have been working on this R that much or not. So when you explain about your skill, please provide some evidence and experience very specifically.
Yeah, I think as far as preparation goes, that's a big thing. You should be able to talk about, I've written an R package and I've managed big data sets, and that kind of thing. I don't have experience doing this piece though, or I just started learning this. Because you want the interviewer to have a sense of what your skills are. And it goes for programming, but anything really. Oh yeah, I've done a little bit of work with IoT, but not as much. But I have done work in this other area or whatever the case may be. Anytime you can think of examples of things to kind of demonstrate it, is helpful with because it's hard to judge yourself, but if you can say these are things I've done, these are things I've taught myself on my own, I had to figure out how to do this, and so anytime you have examples of things you've learned, taught yourself, figure out how to do, how you've worked in groups, how you've been able to communicate complex topics, I think that goes a long way in preparation. If you can come up with examples of things that the employers will look for, that I think is really helpful.
Questions? Yes.
Second part is that you prepare for application before 1 year before, and you find a fill between the job description and your experience. I'm wondering, how did you fill the gap? Did you prepare for the presentation or did you do the publication?
Yeah, so at that time when I applied, I also applied the academic job. At that time, they emphasized DNI, the diversity, equity, and inclusion. But at the time, I didn't have any experience about that. So I tried to more involved in like University of Iowa student group at work. And regarding the industry job, so they always say the practical experience. So I try to have a more RA sheet with like ITP or more experience. And then sometimes they also prepare somebody who had an internship. So if you have some internship, you probably have some hands-on experience. So if you start to find your job like 2 year or 3 year ahead, and then you realize, oh, I don't have an internship. So this year I will focus on the internship, and next year I will apply for the job, something like that. So I think if you start to only to look at the the recruitment to the job posting, you can see that what kind of skill that you want to build on.
I would also add that oftentimes you'll see job postings that have way too much on them, like things that no single person is probably gonna have at that level. With the intention of, maybe you have this subset of skills and that's great, or you have this subset of skills and that's great too. But not everyone is, you don't necessarily have to think that you need all of them. Oftentimes, they sort of want to cast a wide net. And so, it's helpful to sort of see what other things might be useful to learn about, but that's not to say that you necessarily have to have all of them to be a good candidate. Oftentimes I'll just say all these things, if you have some of them, that's great. They don't necessarily explicitly say that.
Right. And then now I wanna convey my vice president to Word. So today I have a meeting with him this morning, and then he is also alumni from here. And then I asked him that, is there any advice that you want to give to graduate student? And then he said, like, Iowa is always great candidate because we know like a different skill a lot. Like some school they are only focused on the SEM, some person only focused on the IRT. But we have like a different skill set, the equating. So please try to be confident about that. And then as long as you write down the so as Ben said that this kind of skill, this kind of skill, most of you probably fit very well in the industry. So please focus on the cover letter that you will distinguish a little bit from other candidates. You already know the most of skill, so please do not evaluate yourself very low, underestimate. So that's the advice for you guys.
Yeah, you may not have a ton of experience doing research and equating, but you may know enough to have a really good foundation to be able to pick things up quickly.
From Iowa.
Yeah, and that's the same for a bunch of different topics.
Questions before ending our session today? Are we doing good? Great.
I have a question.
Yes, Mubarak.
Especially, I think Ben can answer this. You've moved a lot in the industry position. And at one point I was thinking, if I have a job, how do I determine it's time to move from this position?
I also want to know.
That's a good question.
Stop the recording.
I think that would be a good thing to stop the recording before this is answered.
Okay.
Of course we can.
Or pause it, yeah,
Yeah.
at the very top.
Sometimes you may have to put in a little effort to
Right,
get there.
exactly.
And a good environment will
So we want to say thank you, Dr. Park, and thank you, Dr. Andrews, for sharing your experience with us. And we wish all the best for our candidates that want to enter industry. And that's our last meeting. So thank you so much for your participation and attending our meeting.